Just because you're quiet doesn't mean you can't also be powerful. Join award-winning authors, activists, and confirmed introverts Lisa Hurley and Sharon Hurley Hall as they explore introversion, workplace culture, self-care, and much more. Each episode of the Introvert Sisters Live, which is the evolution of their original Anthem Award-winning podcast, blends thoughtful conversation, insightful analysis, and practical strategies through an intersectional lens. Created especially for those quiet souls who are so often overlooked and underestimated, the Introvert Sisters Live provides a serene space where neurodivergence is normalized, nuance is celebrated, depth is welcome, and introversion is honored as a strength. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Introvert Sisters Live podcast. Live. And let me start off by saying, for those of you who are joining us on video, my deepest apologies. I'm sure you can see that my camera is glitching like it has a serious issue. I don't know what happened, but I just ask you to bear with me, bear with us. And I promise that by the next time we're back on camera, my camera will not be glitching. Sharon, side note, so the two of us are sisters, for those of you who don't know. So of course, Sharon is the techie one. So there have been many conversations and text messages back and forth about how do I fix it? I can't get it done in time, etc., etc. And it turns out it's a hardware issue, not a software issue. Anyway, bear with us. The show is still going to be good, right? This show is still going to be amazing. And today we are talking about executive presence.
Executive presence. Now, right? I actually started because, a lot of people talk about executive presence. So I went on forums just to see what they said about executive presence. Mm-hmm. It's about your ability to inspire confidence, to let people know that you're capable and reliable. But it was interesting as I looked into it, a lot of it seemed to be about performing extroversion. I mean, I don't know if it's just me.
Exactly.
I don't know how you read it. And I feel that there are ways that we as extroverts can be excellent leaders. We know this. Yes. Without and have executive presence of our own without having to perform extroversion.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And yes, I definitely believe that a lot of what people think comprises executive presence is actually extroversion, right? And I know that in terms of let's say for my my annual reviews, for example, one thing that I noticed is my work, the actual work, the production, the thinking, the strategy, the output, all of that was always 10 out of 10, and on a good year it could be 15 out of 10. But especially once I moved here to the United States, basically my entire personality was seen as a detriment, and because I'm quiet, I was not necessarily seen as a leader. But in a culture in Barbados, in the UK, also where I've led and presented, that was not the case. It was just assumed that this is a person who is capable, highly educated, well experienced, eloquent, has charisma, all of that was it was seen, it was a positive for me, even though I was quiet. So there is a cultural element that is involved in whether or not one is perceived as having executive presence. What about you, sis?
Yes. I don't know. I just don't know why one has to be loud, fast, outward. Why that is expected. And for me, it was like I couldn't win, right? Because there was a part of me. I was tall. I have a long stride, and so I would appear very confident, but then I would be very quiet, and then people would overlook me, and it was just, I don't know. I think I learned very, very early that there had to be different ways for me to show up.
Yes,
There
for
had to be
sure.
different ways for me to show up because I don't think that it is about volume. I don't think visibility is about volume. And I don't think that introversion is a limitation either, you know?
Yes, I agree. And for those of you who are joining us on video, again, my camera is definitely glitching really badly. And we've had a suggestion that maybe I should turn the camera off so that it does not, the flashing does not trip anybody who has, maybe migraines or potentially epilepsy or something like that. So, sis, if it's okay with you, I think that's what I will do.
Okay, that's
Because
fine.
right, so I'll be here, but you just won't see me. There'll be a little black box, but I swear I'll be here. And LinkedIn user, I can't actually see who you are, but whoever you are, thank you so much for that suggestion. And so I will turn my camera off now. And here we go.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I am actually checking. It's clear. Thank you very much, Claire.
Oh, thank you so much, Claire. I appreciate that. That's a great suggestion. And so yeah,
Yes.
so the myth that executive presence is somehow predicated on whoever speaks the loudest,
Yes.
whoever has the most sort of bravado and braggadocio, and
Mm.
yeah, right, because
Yes.
I can think of somebody who is in one might even say one of the most high profile leadership positions on the planet, and who is what I would term, that famous quote, sound and fury signify nothing. But that's just me.
Well, yes, and then we have had other people
Right?
who have not made a big show of themselves, and it has not been about being loud. So I think that says it all. And before we go on, let me just say a welcome to Claire, Glenn, Evan, Joe, and anyone else who's joining us. Appreciate you being here today.
Yes, thank
Oh,
you all for joining us and welcome. And so, in contrast to that person of an orange hue who we will not name by name, but we know who we're talking about, and everybody knows who we're talking about. Think of people
uh,
like, there's Maya Angelou, Nelson Mandela, Barack Obama, Rosa
yes,
Parks, Oprah Winfrey,
exactly.
all very famous. And the fame really has nothing to do with it. We're just mentioning them because it's more likely
You
that
know who they are.
right, everyone will know who these people are. But the key thing is that these were and are all leaders in their field on a global level. Globally, these are icons and introverted, leaders
Yes,
and introverted, eloquent
yes.
and introverted.
And introverted.
Yes,
Yes, yes, yes. And
right.
so,
And
confident and introverted,
and
analytical and introverted,
all of these
credible and
credible and
introverted.
introverted. And so, yeah, what are some of the top strengths of introverted leaders? Do you think?
Well, I've mentioned a couple of
Mentioned
well
some, right?
already. Yes, we've
Yeah,
mentioned confidence and good analysis. Introverts are persuasive communicators. Um, we are very quietly charismatic,
yeah,
right? Not in a loud way at all.
yes,
We're composed, calm under pressure, act with integrity, active listeners. Seriously, introverts listening is a superpower.
it
We're
really is.
great at forging strong one-to-one relationships, which are obviously is something that is really useful within a team or business setting, in a community.
Absolutely.
Empathetic, emotionally intelligent. What else would you like to add, sis?
I want to add a few. I also want to go back to composed and calm under pressure. Because
Yes.
if that isn't a fundamental leadership quality, I don't know what is, right? the ability,
Yes.
again, unlike orange people, the ability to remain composed and non-reactive, to remain planful, right?
Yes.
To be strategic and not to sort of move with every wind that blows, to hold your ground, not necessarily in terms of stubbornness, but just in terms of confidence, to be able to hold your
Yes.
ground, remain calm, and think a situation through, and then act based on that. I think is definitely superpower. So I want to make sure to mention that again. I would also say, and this applies to definitely some of the people that we mentioned, again, Nelson Mandela, Barack Obama, Oprah Winfrey, and more.
Mm-hmm.
Smart and yet humble.
Yes.
Smart
Yes.
and
Yes.
yet
Yes.
humble. And I have seen these people, on video and so on, actually take a step back, actually be able to
Yeah.
admit, hey, yes, I'm smart, but I did not know that. I did not know that.
Exactly.
I never thought about this situation in that way. Thank you for providing
Yes.
me with that context, and not having
Yes. Yes.
to, not being tied and so egotistical that they must be right in every single case.
Exactly.
Right. Being able to admit wrong, being able to admit when they've made a mistake, being able to also give others room to shine. That's something that I've seen, especially
Oh my gosh.
that's I believe fundamental to Oprah's brand. And I still remember, this is years ago now, before Iyanla Van Zant became Iyanla Fix My
Yeah.
Life. Right? Fix
Yeah.
My Life Van Zant, right? But I remember there were a few shows where Oprah actually ceded her stage,
Yes.
Iyanla,
Yes. 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 Yes.
right? It
And
took
actually,
nothing away from her.
going back to the article I read on executive presence, which we will drop in the show notes. When I read that, I don't see anything in there that introverts are not fully capable of and actually good at. Having
Exactly.
a vision and articulating it well, right?
Yes.
Because we tend to be articulate, understanding how others experience you because we are emotionally intelligent,
Yes.
communication skills, excellent listening,
Yes.
right?
And that's such a big
Right?
one. That's such a big
Yes,
one. Listening. Yes.
yes, as you were saying, operating under stress, right? Um, and another one was cultivate your network. And because we are good at building strong one to one relationships, and because we are good at listening, we can build strong networks. We build good relationships. It's something that we're actually excellent at. We are
Yes.
not hiding in a corner, we are building relationships.
Mm-hmm.
There was one thing on this article that I really I dissed. But well, as you're coming from corporate, maybe you will have a different view. It said, make sure your appearance isn't a distraction. So immediately I thought to myself, who is that geared to? Who decides whose appearance is a distraction? And what exactly do they mean by that? You know?
So we know what they mean by that. And as with anything, I believe that there is nuance. I believe that there's nuance, right?
Yeah.
So for example, there's no world in which I am going to show up. Like for example, I'm going to be at Black Writers Weekend, right, in New
Yeah.
York. I am not going to show up for that in my sweatpants. It's
Oh
just not
gosh,
going to
no,
happen, right?
no.
And so that's what I mean. There's nuance.
There's nuance. There's
There's
nuance. And there's a big distinction between those who can show up in their sweatpants and those who can't.
there is that
Those who can put their feet on the airplane tray table and those who can't.
child. Yes.
Right? I
And
mean,
on,
just saying.
and on these seats when you're at a Broadway play, and then they put their feet up on the seat in front, and anyway, but
Oh my gosh. Yes.
trauma.
Okay.
Trauma.
Right, right.
Moving on.
All I'm
You
saying is that does not come in under consuming entertainment while black. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yes, exactly. But back to the appearance thing. I
Yes,
do think body language can have something to do with how one is perceived.
for
And
sure.
and like it or not, if you slump into a room,
Mm-hmm.
if you slump into a room, you are unlikely to be perceived as a leader. Now, slumping into a room doesn't mean that you can't then go on the stage and absolutely nail your presentation, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you care, which some of us don't, right? If you care
Mm-hmm.
about how you're perceived, then yes, practice a good body language.
Yeah.
Stand up tall, head high, shoulders back. And for
Yes.
people like myself who are autistic, now I am somebody with autism who, and girl, I don't know if this is from years of masking. I don't know what it is. I'm actually relatively good at maintaining eye contact.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
right.
Surprisingly.
Right. I'm
Right.
pretty good.
I read this about autism too, and I just I feel like years of masking and training have led to being able to do that. I don't have a problem with that. I may
Yeah.
not want to talk to you, but I can look you in the eye while not wanting to talk to you.
Right. And it might feel uncomfortable, but I can do it. There are some people, however, for whom it is uncomfortable to the
Yeah.
point where they can't do it, and that is okay.
Yes,
Again, it's the spectrum.
because
Yes.
I think that having these let's call it what it is, white supremacist norms
Yes.
about what constitutes leadership presence, executive presence, ableist norms about
Yes.
what constitutes executive presence seriously discriminates against people who have a lot to contribute, who are people who absolutely can and should be perceived as leaders.
Mhm.
And then there's this one thing, and people just throw them out. And I
Yeah.
think it's so wrong. I think it's so wrong
Absolutely.
because, you know, my ability to look somebody in the eye does not have anything to do with what's going on in my brain.
True.
Well, it does. It does and it doesn't. But you know what I mean? In other words, I'm still paying attention. I'm still reading the room. I'm still coming up with ideas. I'm still doing all of those things.
Hmm.
Right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes.
And the thing is, the truth of the matter is that no amount of real or perceived executive presence, no amount of presenting yourself in the way that white supremacy dictates or would prefer that we all do is going to make up for racism. No amount
No.
of it. Because
No.
we have all seen videos or heard stories of, let's say, surgeons who
Hmm.
go into the room, pre-op to consult with their patient, and the patient asks for the doctor. The black surgeon
Yes.
says, I am your surgeon. The
Hmm.
white patient says, well, I would prefer somebody else, or aren't you the nurse,
Yeah.
or whatever it happens to be. So
Yes.
that must
Yes.
be said as well. Racism is going to racism.
Yes. And so no amount of confidence in your own ability, no, is going to make up for that. It's
Yes.
just not going to happen. It's not just going to happen.
However, it
Right.
is not going to happen. However, it comes back to, at the end of the day, like if you are in a situation like that where, I've definitely been, shall we say, mistaken for the
Ask to
help.
make the tea. Ask
Right.
to make the tea when you go into a meeting room. Yeah, that's happened.
When I am the person, no, you are here for me. You are here because I'm presenting. Let's get this correct. However, executive presence is about being able to handle a situation like that
Hmm.
gracefully,
Yes.
graciously, directly, and firmly, but
Yes.
without, as the phrase go, without popping off. We don't necessarily want to pop off on the people that we're about to present to or that we're in a meeting with. So there are ways that one
Oh,
can communicate um, with executive presence and with grace and with clarity and with
yes.
power. But all of that, before we even get into communicating with authority, let's talk about knowing who you
Knowing
are,
who.
because that really is the foundation, don't you think, sis?
I agree. And just before we get into that, I want to just highlight Evan's comment. The best leaders I've had in tech are introverts. I feel like those qualities foster better trust and communication. And that leads very nicely into, knowing who you are. How
Yes.
does that change how you show up in professional spaces that were not designed with you in mind? And I mean, we both had to do this. Almost every workplace that I worked in once I left the Caribbean was a workplace in which I was in the minority, right? Um, and where people tried to minorize me. But the thing was, I was coming out of a situation where I knew who I was. I knew what I was capable of. I knew what kind of background I had. I did not shrink myself because of other people's opinion of me. So having that clarity, and this is not hubris. This is about knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know,
Yeah.
right? And then
Mozart,
being able to distinguish between them clearly, right?
yes, yes.
You know,
Mozart is not going to
even
pretend that he can't play the piano. He can play the piano. Well, could, but you understand what I mean.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you start with that. Now, people are going to do what they do because as a Black professional, you're often going to be asked to prove yourself again and again, to show those credentials again and again and again, right? You'll get the surprise at the professional expertise that you have built up again and again and again. But the thing is that you have to know your worth within yourself and not let people's foolishness detract detract from your sense of self, from your sense of worth. And when you refuse to let people treat you as less than, then you have that executive presence
You have that
because
executive presence.
you will expect nothing less,
Yeah.
and people will grow to associate you with that. What do you think, sis?
I agree. And I think a lot certainly for the two of us, because we grew up in Barbados, which is a Black majority country, that also changes,
Sure.
affects and informs how we view ourselves, because we were born and raised and viewed as winners from day one, as
Yes.
winners, as worthy, as smart, as respectable, as creative, as dignified, as
Yes.
leaders from birth,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That is just the truth of how we were raised. And so we walk into any situation knowing that we are that girl. We are that girl. We are that person. We are that
Absolutely.
leader. We are the talent that people have come to see and learn from. That is who we are, right? And so
Yes.
that has never been an issue. And that doesn't mean that we have never experienced a moment of self-doubt. It doesn't mean that we have never even failed. I mean, I was telling a friend of mine the other day, I have failed publicly. I
Oh
have failed
yeah, I've made
publicly.
mistakes.
Oh yeah, I failed publicly in front of probably thousands of people, to be honest, right? But an event is not your character. An event is not a personality, right?
No.
Having failed once does not make you a failure. And so, yes, I have experienced failure like all of us have. You can't really go through life without experiencing
And
failure,
and
but it never changed my view of who I am. It's like,
and
oh, that didn't go so well. You'll do better next time.
yes, and can I just add here, sis, that a lot of the people that we think are great, whether we think they're great or not, the people that are prominent, the people that have prominent businesses, they failed several times on the way to creating those. And
Yes,
nobody would argue that they don't have executive presence. So
exactly.
yes, I want to reiterate that, a single failure or even multiple, does not define you. And so we have to hold that truth in our being. We have to
Yes,
hold that truth. We have to hold the truth, as I often say, that we are not broken extroverts. We are introverts with our own strengths.
yes, yes. We are not broken extroverts. We are whole introverts. That's it.
Exactly.
That is it.
Exactly.
And as we mentioned before, sis, a lot of executive presence is based in how one communicates. It's about communicating with quiet
Yes.
authority. It's not about yelling and shouting and sucking all of the air out of the room. It is about expressing confidence and clarity and authority, again, without having to perform extroversion. So Can you give us some examples of what quiet authority might look like? Let's say in a meeting. Can you give us a few examples of what quiet authority would look like there?
Absolutely. It's, you are speaking with purpose, right? You're not jumping in to fill a silence. When you speak, it's because you have something to add, not something to prove. And actually, I remember this happening in meetings. I was sitting in a meeting with 12 people, 11 of whom were very noisy. There was a lot of yelling in the room. And I could see them looking at me and wondering what was going on. And then I came in and made a remark, and they suddenly looked and realized that I had not been disaffected. I had been paying attention, and I had made a valuable, quiet contribution.
Yes.
And so that brings me to the second thing. You lead with observation before contribution.
Yes.
You're listening for patterns and gaps, what's not being said, and then you come in with your insights. This is all playing to our strengths as introverts. And then I'll add one more. You're concise and clear in the way you express yourself.
Yes.
You don't ramble. You don't over-explain. You say, this is what I'm seeing, and this is what I recommend. This is something I am definitely known for, and I'm sure you are too, sis.
Well, I will say of the two of us, I am more of the rambler. You ramble a lot less. But I definitely use concise, clear language. Again, bringing back the ableism, bringing back, all the other isms, racism, and so on. Someone like me using clear, concise language, there are some people who interpret that as being rude or being blunt, whereas they say if I were in a white body, it might be perceived differently. Be that as it may, using clear, concise language is an actual superpower, because there is too much waffling and lack of clarity that goes on in meetings. It is a big pain point of mine. And so being the person who can anchor the room when it gets chaotic and bring everyone back to center and focus people on the problem is definitely a superpower. And so let's turn to communicating with quiet authority and executive presence when you're making a presentation. Like, what does that look like, sis?
Yes, clarity again. Clarity, you are helping people to understand things, you're helping them to remember things, you pace yourself, you don't gabble. I have a problem with gabbling. I always have to remember to pace myself, but you don't gabble so that people listen more closely. Now, this next one is one that I use a lot. You use pauses as power. A pause says this matters. Give space to absorb your message. Oh my gosh, Kristen Mortensen is in the house. I appreciate clarity too. It saves so much time. Thank you for joining us, Kristen. Happy to see you. Yes, less fluff, more value. No filler and plenty of substance. We kind of live by that, don't we, sis?
Oh, absolutely. And it shows in the work we do. It shows in how we present and prepare even for these episodes, for our podcasts. We always make sure that there are takeaways that the audience can leave with, actual actionable items. So it is a discussion. Absolutely. It's a discussion, but there's also information. There's education, and people leave. We provide value. So yes.
It's important to us. Flying Kitten Power says, I think a reason some people push back on clear, concise language is they don't like hearing the truth. And they turn it around into saying they didn't like the delivery. Oof, yeah, I've heard that before. And again, when you are walking in certain skin, you are more likely to attract that kind of criticism. If they can't get you on, what you've actually said, they will say, oh, well, it's how you said it.
Yes.
So let's turn to.
But again, if you go back to who you are, and resting on who you know yourself to be, on your self-confidence, then that kind of comment or reaction will not sway you, and you will remain
Yeah,
rooted. You will, no one will be able to move you off your square.
absolutely. So let us talk a little bit about what happens in those high stakes conversations. How do you handle that? Do you want to give us a couple of tips there, Sis?
Absolutely. And actually this ties into what we just alluded to. You respond instead of reacting. You take
Mm,
if someone says something problematic or unclear or heaven forbid rude to someone else, let's say if that happens, or someone is
mhm,
deliberately trying to derail the conversation, you take a breath, you take a pause, and then you respond.
mhm.
And I think responding is different than reacting. Reacting is instantaneous and not thought out, in my opinion. So
Yes.
our ability to remain calm comes in there. So we are able to, in a high stakes conversation, respond with thought and with clarity, and while staying anchored. And back to communicating, how we communicate. I would say that you and I tend to be direct, but
Yes.
because we are
Yes.
empathetic, we are
Yeah.
direct without being harsh. Like we think about, okay, how might what I am saying land on someone else? And
Absolutely.
that is very important if you are in a high stakes conversation, if you're presenting to a board or something of that nature where there's a big project on the line, funding is on the line. You have to be able to be direct without insulting anyone, right?
And can I just say this is that this is another place where our strengths of intuition, our ability to be analytical, all
Yeah.
of those come into play because we are prepared ahead of time.
Yes.
We are
That's
prepared ahead of time. You and I both know because we've done many things together and separately, right? We prepare. We think about what could happen. We think about what people might ask. We think about what might come up. And we do a little more research than is probably required.
yes.
Right? But it
But
does
I'm okay with
mean
that.
that when
Yeah.
you come to those conversations, you have a foundation of knowledge which allows you to hold on to to your sense of self,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
It allows you to ask those powerful clarifying questions when there's pushback, right? It allows you to stop being rattled by the big personalities in the room because, as we both know, volume does not equal authority or even good sense. Hashtag
No,
orange
especially black.
man.
I'm lucky in that I think I was in my 20s when I started out, as a marketing officer. And
Mhm,
but everyone else who was in a similar position pretty much was at
mhm.
the minimum in their 40s, at the minimum.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I had to operate at that level because I was at that level. I was in those rooms. I was in those meetings. I was negotiating and signing those contracts. And
Yeah,
so I had to be able to hold my own against executives, sometimes even like, ministers of tourism and so on,
yeah,
who had been in their fields probably for decades, if not years, if not decades.
yes,
And so I got trained very early in the ability to being able to hold my own, ask questions, push back, know when to push,
mhm,
know when to fall back, know how to guide the conversation in the direction that you would prefer for it to go in, know
yeah.
how to navigate in rarefied circles, shall we say. And so,
So
yeah.
I didn't get that same training, but
Mhm.
because of my training as a journalist and teacher, I have always used writing as my way, right? I will reflect, I will write you a nice little email or a document or something, and my perspective will be clear. So I
Yeah.
play to my strengths in that regard when I have
Yes.
a perspective to share,
Yes.
you know?
I would also say, sis, because of course, you were going to minimize yourself, but I'm here to be your cheerleader. And so when Sharon said she was a teacher, which is a great thing to be, don't get me wrong. And I definitely still remember one of my favorite teachers back from back home, Mrs. Campbell, right? So when she says she was a teacher, she means that she was a professor, a lecturer at Coventry University, and that she created the journalism program. That's actually what she means, but like, moving on.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sis. Thank you, sis. Let us just move quickly to quiet minds, loud opinions just before we get to the end.
Yes.
And I said to Lisa yesterday as we were doing our prep for the show that one of the things I wanted to talk about, which has nothing to do with
Yes,
executive presence, really.
nothing at all, but still,
Nothing at all. I want to talk about this cloud bob nonsense, otherwise known as an afro. Right?
Tell me, sis, when you first saw it, what were your thoughts? Cloud bob.
My thoughts probably do not belong on air. You know, but right, it's like cloud bob. WTF? I thought to myself. Looks like a throw to me. Looks like a throw to me. So listen, because I remember when Boderick wore braids, right? And they tried to call it something else. There's always this thing about, somebody does something which is similar to a black hairstyle, and then all of a sudden they give it another name. They're basically colonizing it. And I am not here for it. I disagree.
Yes.
And also, let's bring it back into the workplace. This is in a situation, in a time when you have to legislate to allow people to wear their hair the way it grows.
The way it grows out of their heads. And it's absolutely ridiculous that this is the situation in which we find ourselves, where
you can't be saying, oh, black people can't wear their hair like this nation, and then someone else can colonize the afro. So what do you feel about it? Just before we move to the end. I know we're over time, but bear with us for a couple more minutes, people.
Yes, no, I agree with everything you said. And I also remember when someone of pallor called edges and baby hairs sticky bangs. I remember that.
Oh.
Yeah, that was also ridiculous. But yeah, I'm not here for the colonization. I'm not here for the appropriation. And there's no such thing as a cloud bob. It is called an afro, and that's that on that. And I just want y'all to know that I am saying that with executive presence.
I love it. So, closing reflections. Let us just say that executive presence, and Lisa has just given you a good example, is not something you put on. It is something you embody when you trust yourself enough to show up as you are. Yes. Final word, sis?
Yes. My final word is that quiet authority is powerful because it is rooted in the truth of who you are. And when you know who you are, you don't have to raise your voice in order to make an impact. And so we are introverts. We are here. We have quiet minds. We have loud opinions, and we have executive presence. And with that,
absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we will see you again in a couple of weeks. Bye.
Bye.